Hello chess players, welcome to the next lesson about practical endgames, where we are still looking at pass pawns theme. Today's lesson is gonna be about push the pass pawn. So first thing, let's check the homework from the last video. So what did you come up with? This position, very tricky position. Looks like everything is hanging here, but white can do with forcing moves. Very nice idea to create a pass pawn and just push it. So f7 is the correct first move. We kind of make the fork here, so black has to take either way. King takes. If the queen takes, we do the check, and king h7 and the fork. I hope you've seen this. So f7, they have to take with the king. They have to do it. And now the best move is queen g6. White forces the queen's exchange, basically forcing the king to move. But maybe other move is knight g5. Black has a defense then against this. Of course, they cannot go like king f6 because we go knight h7, and then next move will be most likely queen g6. I hope, or if here, I think we're winning the knight this way. So they have to go either after knight g5. Not the best move, but black can survive if they find king g8 or king f8. King g8, one of the possible two defenses, and white goes queen d5 and they go king h8. Now if queen takes the knight, they have this move, check, and they make a draw, with perpetual checks and so on. Queen and knight versus queen is usually draw. So instead we don't take the knight, we go knight f7 check, but then black can play king g8. If they, of course, if they go king h7, then we take with check and win. But they go king g8, and what's the deal? The deal is if we try winning the queen, we also lose the queen by the fork like this, and they make a draw. Or if we take this way, queen can go here and they kind of make a draw. Another defense was against knight g5, if you thought about this move, was king f8, knight h7, and basically it's a draw because, again, if we try winning the queen, we also have this fork. Knight is a tricky piece. So, but the best move, the answer is queen g6, surprisingly going to exchange queens. And I hope you've considered this position, and this is there is a very nice move here. So if you haven't kind of calculated until here, now is your moment to find a very nice tactic. How to promote the pawn? We sack the knight. A very nice combination and pattern to remember. And this knight is helpless. This knight is helpless against the rook pawn. Rook pawn is going through. Even if they try to sack it back, of course we don't take to make a draw. We go through, and pass pawn will become queen with easily winning queen versus knight, easily winning endgame. So I hope you've seen this sequence, in the homework. We exchange the queens, and the final best move is knight g7 combination. Otherwise we take the knight if they don't take and win that way. Well, I hope you did well, and let's continue. Let's see the first example of our passer must be pushed theme. And here white has two bishops and an outside pass pawn. So as the saying goes, passer must be pushed. And here, we are supported by bishops, so pawn goes really fast. g5. Black tries desperately for something, but it doesn't quite work. We push the pawn forward, let them take a6, bishop a8. So what to do next? Now what? How we can support the pawn further, yeah, to advance. Pause the video if you need. Bishop f5 is a good move, trying to kind of go, yeah, if the knight moves, we go here and here. So bishop f5, nice idea. In the game, knight f4 was played, allowing that. I think maybe a bit more stubborn defense would be king e7, but then we can bring this bishop back, eat this h4 pawn, let's say knight c7, and then bishop d3. Still, white is, has a winning position here because bishop pair and passer gives us huge advantage. So in the game, knight moved. Black is trying to promote their own pawn, yeah, take this and promote the h-pawn pawn. So we went, yeah, as we've seen, bishop c8, knight g2 takes the pawn, and bishop b7, trying to eliminate the only guardian of promotion there. And after h3, what to do? Well, we have to stop the pawn first, yeah, so bishop g1, stopping h2, and we're winning. Bishop b7, ab, and the pawn goes through. So maybe the only chance for black was here, not to move the knight, somehow still hold the position, but here still white has big advantage. So passer must be pushed. Here we have a nice position for black from the game Anand-Polgar. And what do you think black should do here? Pause the video if you need. Well, passer must be pushed, yeah, that's our theme. So e3, rook has to block. Yeah, if they take here, I hope you don't get mated, yeah, don't take the rook and get mated. But this move wins, yeah, because now both rooks are hanging. Okay, but rook e2 blocks the pawn, so what to do now? That's the big question. Pause the video if you need. And here black uncorked an amazing combination. They are trying to just remove this blocker. So rook b2, amazing move. Exchanging, yeah, removing the e2 rook. The only piece which could stop the pawn. Has to take. Yeah, we sacrificed the whole rook, but our pawn is going through, cannot be stopped. The only chance for white is this mating net. So they played rook h7, trying to checkmate us on h8. But this threat can easily be paired by king g8. And white is still trying to do something with this mating net. So we queen, of course, and they play knight f5 now. So trying to do a mating net. I hope you see how, yeah. Let's say I make some bad move, yeah, just to illustrate, and we are getting checkmated like this. So what to do for black now? We start checking, give another check. King has to kind of go to a2, otherwise king b2, a3, we're gonna checkmate fast. Yeah, here, for example, here. So queen d1, king has to go to a2, queen b3, king a1. Yeah, queen is super mobile, checking, taking some pawns on the way with checks. And after this move, king a1, king cannot go to c1, yeah. Bishop e3 will win, because we are basically forking with the bishop the rook. And if they take, queen takes its place, yeah, and we win the rook. So king has to go after queen b3 to a1. And here is the final kind of moment to win the game, yeah. Still, there is a threat of mate to us, so we have to be careful. But how to win from here with black? I hope you've seen bishop d4 move. This spectacular move dismantles white's kind of attacking group, yeah, this one. And they have to take, there's no other move. And how do we win it back? Just queen c3. No more knight on the board, and we win the game this way. So interesting example, e3, and even a sacrifice to clear up the way. Okay, let's move on. This next example is kind of similar to our homework. So passer must be pushed. So white starts with h5 move and knight e3 check. If king takes e7, then the pawn just goes through. Black king is not in the square, and the knight is preventing coming back, yeah, like this. So h5, knight e3 check. Useful kind of pattern to know. This distance, yeah, between king and knight, one square. But if we have this diagonal kind of opposition, yeah, with king and knight, knight will take 4 turns to give a check. So good pattern to know. I think most of you maybe know this already. So here black tried to come back with the knight, yeah, that's why they gave the check. And seems like knight arrived just in time. So how white can continue here? Yeah, pause the video and think of a way. Remember the homework. That's the big hint. So I hope you see e8 queen. Suddenly pawn is lost anyway, so white just forces the matters. King has to take, and now again this motive, knight e7 fork. Yeah, we misplaced with the queening king and knight just perfectly for this fork. Has to take, and again h7. We've already seen this pattern. So knight is terrible at holding side pawns or rook pawns, and the pawn goes through. Okay, so nice example from actually the study. Yeah, this was not from the game, this was a study. So I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, passers must be pushed. Next example is from the Polgar game. She's playing black, and the white just went rook a5. Actually, white could have already made kind of a draw by just capturing the pawn. Rook takes, rook a5, rook b7, making the rook passive, and king f4. But maybe white didn't want to play just the pawn down, but this should be a draw with good play for white, because their rook is kind of active, king is active, so should be enough to make a draw. But white wanted just an easy draw, maybe, yeah, just exchange all the pawns. So and black set up a nice trap here, b3. So how should actually now white continue? Yeah, let's play with white, not to blunder something. What do you think? Should we maybe take on a7, do something else? So white actually did take on a7, but what's the deal? What did white actually miss? Yeah, now think with black. How to use this pass pawn. And actually, suddenly, black found an amazing move. Rook b4, kind of blocking the whole file, sacrificing the rook. And when the white takes, very good pattern to remember. Suddenly b file is blocked by the white pawn. Rook cannot get back to the b file, cannot get back. Yeah, to save the basically to prevent promotion. So amazing pattern to remember, and that's how the game was actually lost. A rook tried to set up some fortress, queen just took the pawn, but there are too many pawns on the board to set up fortress here, so black just advanced the king forward, gave some check, and queen is trying to get behind the king. So, and actually white made even a blunder here. Yeah, they ran into the pin, and now they're in Zugzwang. Yeah, they will lose the rook eventually. So otherwise we would try to win how? Queen will getting behind the pawn, the king, yeah, and maybe slowly push something. And actually, now that I noticed, yeah, black is even threatening to transpose into the pawn endgame. So for example this, yeah, we don't need to get behind with the queen, we just take the rook with a winning pawn endgame. So the big question is, what happened here? How should white play here? So I hope you've seen rook b5 move. That's actually the only saving move, controlling the b line. And the draw is still possible here, even if seems like black is a pawn up. White activates the rook, b2. Yeah, otherwise we just take the a pawn, most likely. If they play a5, maybe we could just play a4. And eventually black will have to sack this pawn, go pawn up. But again, chances to hold the draw here, good chances for white, because we're gonna put the rook behind, activate the king, and so on. So objectively, this was a drawn game, but white missed this amazing kind of interference, yeah, move, or kind of covering the line, b2. Yeah, even sacking a rook just to make sure the passer goes through. So let's move on to the next example. This position is from the game Anand-Gelfand, from a rapid game. And what do you think white should do here? How to continue? And of course, according to our theme, passer is pushed. So a4. Black tries to bring some pieces to help stop this pawn. Bishop just went back preventively. Yeah, knight c5 maybe was an idea. Black went that way. Bishop e3, trying maybe even to exchange that knight. And knight fd7 was played. If knight b3, maybe we can trade some, yeah, this active rook of black's. And how to continue? We drive this knight blocker out of the way and push the pawn, for example. So in the game, knight fd7, but that allowed just to kind of win the pawn. And black kind of maybe banked their hopes on this move, but doesn't work. Actually, here white can just take the knight. Yeah, maybe. I don't know what black missed here, yeah, because bishop can come back to g1. If knight c5, of course, we give back rank mate. So they took the bishop here, but bishop g1, there is no mate. And our a pawn just goes through. So knight f8, push the passer, a6, rook a1, a7. Bishop now even supports from g1. Look at this, yeah. And easy plan just to bring the rook to the back rank and promote the pawn. So black resigned. This position is from the game Korchnoi-Kasparov. Material is equal, but black has a clear advantage thanks to his more active pieces. Yeah, look at this knight over here. And Kasparov proceeds with the most obvious plan in the position. Passed pawns should move forward, as the saying goes. So rook c5 was played, knight g2, king e2. Now what? What do you think black should play now? And the right idea is ignore the hanging pawn. h4, forward. The idea of enhancing the passed pawn at the cost of material is quite typical, not only in the endgame, but in the middle game as well. So black ignores this threat and just sacks the pawn to kind of speed up pushing of the pawn. So rook took, king g4. Black is putting all their hopes on this passer. So here rook e8 was played. This was like a critical moment of the game, but white tried to kind of move the rook behind the pawn. Often good idea. But black is kind of neutralizing that, as we'll see in the game. Other moves, king f1 is kind of not working because of this line, and pawn is going still through. Let's say f3 may be a move, but then we can take, even allowing transposition to the knight endgame, but h pawn is just too strong here. For example, Knight is jumping around here, even going to e5. Yeah, not going after some a2 pawn, just coming back to e5 to help support the pawn. So h3, long line, yeah, but knight is just helping to win here. Knight e1, king f2, h2, and again, knight is working very well in the coordination with the pawn, preventing the king from reaching the pawn. So nice line. Other move was rook a5. Still, we push the pawn, and king goes here. And the idea is to do the typical bridge, yeah, bridge. White wants to get behind on h8 with the rook. We built kind of the bridge, and some checks even, and we go even for mate. Yeah, pushing the pawn can often lead, yeah, to this mating nets, because king is getting very passive, yeah, in the mating net. So we do this knight and rook typical mate combo next. Okay, let's get back to the game. Rook e8 was played, still knight f4, and still pushing the pawn. Nothing changes. So if rook f3 was played, if rook g8, then king just goes here, and again with the decisive blocking of the line, basically building the bridge again. So f3, but white had to resign after this move. So what happens? Rook h8, we just build the bridge, and if they try to run back with the king, yeah, typical motif in the endgame, cutting off the king. So, and h2 is coming. So that's how Kasparov won against Korchnoi in this game. Let's see our final example of this lesson. White to play. This was from the game Karpov-Miles, two famous legends. How should white continue? They have a nice passer here. What to do next? And the right idea was sack the exchange. Suddenly white sacks the rook, because knight was a good defender, maybe. Yeah, he will go here. So white invested the exchange, but their idea is to support this pawn with all their remaining pawn pieces. So this pawn will be super strong. So rook d8 was played in the game. If rook a8, a nice move is just doing the skewer, yeah. So rook c3, maybe another try. King c3, rook c5, king b4. King is also coming to help. And bishop g2. Again, black is helpless. Their king is too far. We're gonna win the b5 pawn with the king and just push the a pawn. Or just go next bishop b7, yeah, typical move, and then push. So were the other move? Maybe they could try, black could try this move, but then we exchange and basically do the similar idea, bishop g2, yeah, to push the pawn, to support the pawn. And so in the game rook d8 was played, but that kind of gave away the c line. So now white is getting in rook c7, but this would be a mistake actually if rook d4, and suddenly black could cover the diagonal this way, and this would not be good for white. So white had to play precisely still, kind of flexible choice, rook c7 to support the pawn. Rook d1 was played. If rook d4, then bishop b5. If rook c5, then we again take, bishop g2, typical. So rook d1 was tried, but then of course we take this pawn, e5, a7, and with sufficient support, this passed pawn finally advances with a decisive effect. So ef, rook b7, already a threat, rook b8 and promote. Rook b1 was tried, king is going forward, has to sack. Rook took back, f3, so white basically calculated all this. Counterplay, they are promoting first. Actually, they are promoting with the rook up. After this, so black resigns. So this was the final example. So as we've seen, in support of the passed pawn, often we can sacrifice, exchange, or more just to clear the path of any blockers. So keep this idea in mind in your games. And let's move on now to the final position, which will be your homework. So here we have white to play. Yeah, white is going this way. And looks like simple endgame. Rook endgame, looks like draw even. So how should use all the knowledge gained in this lesson and solve this homework? How should white win? White to play and win. And I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.